Do you want to share with the class? Okay. Good morning. We're going to call the Public Service Commission to order. Morning, Commissioner Akampura.
Good morning.
I'd like to start today with a couple announcements. First one is we've changed the process a little bit in that you will see now that the Commission will post a preliminary agenda when we send out notices for the meetings like we've always had, but will be preliminary. And then we will be posting a final agenda the day prior to the meeting. This is to allow for that folks can actually review the final agenda and make sure that the items that they're interested in are still on and don't have to make the trips and only find out the day of. So we're hoping to make this a little easier on folks so that then you understand what's going on. The second thing, I just, before we start on our discussion, want to take a minute to note that yesterday we celebrated and mourned the fact that Gary Brown elected to retire from the commission, and hence, well, he's not here today. So we had a wonderful celebration, and we also, as a commission, have a resolution honoring Gary, which will be posted on our website for everyone to read, and I would urge you to do that. And I'd like to just take a couple minutes because and obviously there are a lot of people who know Gary and have worked with him and have seen what great work he's done over the years he was here, to really, again, note what we talked about, what I talked about yesterday, is that, when you think about sort of one of those truisms of life, you get to pick your friends but not your relatives. The other truism is that you don't get to pick the people you work with, and you sort of have to take them as they come. And once in a while, and frequently here, I would say, you get fortunate enough to work with really fine people, even if you didn't pick them, and they become true friends. And I want to say, and if hopefully Gary's not listening, but just in case he is, that, in terms of what I would look at of the folks I've worked with in my career, Gary exemplifies, I think, the best of the best. I mean, not only, the things you want to when you work with someone, you want them to be very competent at their job, and he was. You want them to exhibit leadership and courage. He did and does. And you want them to be the kind of person who, regardless of the situation they're in, attacks it with grace, good humor, and respect for the people around them. And he does that all the time. So, we're going to miss him a lot. I think he has been a person that all of us have sought counsel from. He, in a very quiet but very gentle way, and often with a lot of humor, would advise us when he thought we were really going off the rails. And I think that one thing that New York can be proud of is that every day and every decision Gary made, he made with a great deal of deliberation of what was the best for the people he was serving. And with that, I felt very honored to have been able to serve with him. And I think I could speak for everyone in the agency, that he's a great person, and we're going to miss him a lot, but we know that he's going to be hugely successful in whatever else he decides to do. I'll be happy if anyone else wants to say anything, but I did want to take that moment.
I'll just say briefly that Gary was a terrific mentor and leader for me from the very minute I set foot in this building as a Wet Behind the Ears commissioner. I appreciated his guidance, his humor, his deep, deep understanding of the issues, and I'll miss him very much.
Thank you. I just want to take the opportunity to say farewell to a man whose word I trusted more than any regulation. His knowledge and experience was really beyond par, and he was someone who actually was my boss before I came to the commission, when I was at the commission. So for me, Gary was a true mentor and a calming influence, and was very helpful to me behind the scenes in talking to me and working through positions and issues and giving me his insights. And I thank him really for his service to the people of New York, and he will be personally missed.
Thanks. Commissioner Kapoor, did you?
I would love to chime in. I'm sorry I wasn't there for Gary's send-off yesterday, but I would like it noted and happy that we've had something to say that goes on the record. It was my pleasure to work with Gary. When he came on the commission, he greatly relieved me of the task of heading up the agency, which was something he wanted to do, but something I didn't sign up for. But I always appreciated the way Gary handled himself, even not in Albany when we were at MACRUC conferences and NARUC conferences. He was very well respected by the regulators throughout our country. And it really was a pleasure to work with him. He had a nice, easy, steady way of handling some of the things that, as we all know, get thrown out at us at the last minute. And he was able to balance that and also balance the needs of the commissioners. His door was always open. You could always speak to him. And it really was a pleasure to work with him. And I wish that he gets to collect a lot of checks from the state and he stays healthy and enjoys with his wife a very long and healthy, successful retirement.
Thank you. So, we are going to now move on to the topics, but thanks, and I'm sure all of you, if you have a chance and see Gary, I'm sure you want to do the same thing. He was a great jewel for us. So we have 3 items on the regular agenda today. The first item is 201, and that's with respect to our Reforming Energy Vision and Clean Energy Fund, our final environmental impact statement, and Paul Agresta will be presenting that.
Thank you. The State Environmental Quality Review Act, or SEQR, requires the Commission to incorporate a consideration of environmental impacts into its decision-making process. Pursuant to SEQR, the Commission is the lead agency for the environmental review of the REV and the clean energy programs. In that regard, the Commission previously determined that an environmental impact statement, or EIS, should be prepared to assist in that environmental review. In October, we presented a draft generic EIS to you, which the Commission accepted as complete and issued for public comment. The minimum 30-day public comment period expired in December, and 15 comments were received. Today, we are presenting for your approval and acceptance a final generic EIS. The final EIS contains an analysis and response to all of the comments that were received and revisions to the text of the draft EIS made as a result of considering the comments. As you know, the final EIS is a voluminous and exhaustive document. Many revisions were made, and the final document is stronger and more comprehensive as a result of the comment process. So we thank the parties that took the time to participate. Jim Austin and Tina Palmero of the Office of Energy Efficiency and Environment managed the project of drafting the document. The final EIS itself was prepared by a contractor, Industrial Economics Incorporated, under the direction of DPS staff with assistance from NYSERDA and the Department of Environmental Conservation. Staff recommends that you adopt the memorandum and resolution in the manner proposed and that the final EIS be accepted and filed as required by SEQR. Filing of the final EIS commences a minimum 10-day waiting period that must occur before the Commission will be in a position to actually begin taking action in these proceedings. When the Commission does take action, SEQR further requires that, in conjunction with any future decisions, the Commission make SEQR findings that will articulate in writing how the Commission has considered the information compiled in the EIS and a statement of the facts and conclusions supporting the particular future decisions. In addition, When the Commission does take those further actions, as it does so, the Commission will need to consider whether mitigation measures are necessary to minimize adverse impacts to the environment. So while this is a big step forward today in the environmental review process, you will be making, as you make further decisions in these proceedings, you will be considering the environment with each decision and deciding whether or not you need to do any mitigation measures as part of those decisions. And this concludes my presentation.
Great, thank you. So, first of all, I'm pleased we're here, and I do appreciate the comments, and I know it was a tremendous amount of work. Was an unusual way, EIS in the context is that it's not a specific project or projects, but a policy proceeding. But without question, it seems to me then CES indicates or shows that the intent of REV, of course, is to think about how we can integrate distributed clean energy, including energy efficiency, much better in the operation of the grid, so that by consequence, the intended outcome of all of this will be to improve the environment and to reduce environmental impacts from the consumption and production of energy. So appreciate that and certainly intend to vote in favor of it. Any further comments?
I just want to thank staff for the diligent work that they did on this. I have up here the draft and also the final, and my same comments on the draft are appropriate for the final. I found this to be a very well-written document that adds a lot of information and helps in looking at the historical perspective, so that I really do want people to focus in, even though today we'll be voting on whether to approve it or not. It is something that people should keep handy and go back to, and this is just one process in going forward. So adopting this today is not locking us in specifically to any one outcome or any outcome going forward. It's just the process. But I do want people to understand the importance of this, and that I do see it as a very valuable document to review and get an understanding. So thank you.
Commissioner Akampora, any comments?
No comments.
Okay, yes. I'll let you shout, and I'll hear you all the way from New York City.
You will hear me,
Yes.
for sure.
Okay, with that, then, all those in favor of the recommendation to adopt a resolution accepting the final generic environmental impact statement is complete pursuant to SECRA, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing no opposition and there being none, the recommendation is adopted. Our second item today is a proceeding to assess residential and non-residential retail energy markets in New York State. It's item 202. And Luann Scher, who's Chief of Consumer Advocacy, and Brandon Goodrich, who's Assistant Counsel, will be here. Brandon will be available for questions, and I believe Luann will be doing the presentation. Welcome.
Good morning. In its February 2014 order regarding residential and small non-residential retail energy markets, the Commission took several actions intended to enhance protections for customers obtaining electricity and/or natural gas from ESCOs. 4 parties filed petitions for rehearing, clarification, or reconsideration. In April 2014, the Commission signaled its intention to address the merits of each of the claims raised in the petitions, granted the procedural request for rehearing, and stayed certain requirements of the February order for future consideration. The most significant issues addressed in the draft order before you include consumer protections that should be applicable to ESCO customers who receive the utility low-income discount benefit and/or a HEAP benefit, and we're referring to these customers as assistant program participants, and the requirements for independent third-party verification, TPV, of enrollments with ESCOs. This item does not address 2 other key issues raised in the petitions for rehearing. The first one is purchase of receivables, and secondly, the definition and reporting requirements related to small commercial customers. We have discussed both of these issues in stakeholder meetings, are currently analyzing data and expect to develop recommendations for Commission consideration over the next couple of months. Regarding protections for low-income customers, although an ESCO is not obligated to serve any customer, the Commission determined in the February order that when an ESCO serves an assistance program participant, the ESCO must satisfy at least one of two conditions. The ESCO must guarantee that the customer will pay no more on an annual basis than the customer would have paid as a full-service customer of the utility, or the ESCO must provide the customer with energy-related value-added products or services. On rehearing, petitioners asked for substantial changes to these new protections for low-income ESCO customers. The Commission postponed the effective date of the low-income protections until the concerns and questions raised by ESCOs were thoroughly reviewed. After two stakeholder meetings, staff recommends that the Commission substantially reaffirm its February policy. Our recommendation is designed to ensure that all customers, including assistance program participants, can take advantage of opportunities to be created through the REV initiative, including advanced energy management products and renewable energy resources. Similarly, assistance program participants should have the same opportunity as other customers to purchase fixed-rate products at reasonable prices. At the same time, these options must not dilute the effectiveness of the financial assistance programs these customers receive. Regarding energy-related value-added services, including fixed-rate products, we are recommending that we convene a collaborative of interested parties to develop proposed requirements for ESCO provision of energy-related value-added, including fixed-price offerings to low-income customers, which do not dilute the effectiveness of the low-income benefits. We expect to report back to the Commission within 6 months. Similarly, after discussions with industry experts, we believe a point-of-sale approach to confirming a low-income customer's participation in a low-income discount program is necessary. We are recommending that the collaborative we just identified also consider technological approaches to implementing the Commission's low-income policies. The collaborative should also consider how to protect existing low-income ESCO customers and customers who become low-income after taking service from an ESCO. We recommend that these issues also be resolved in the 6-month time frame. Regarding third-party verification of enrollments, the Commission's February 2014 order requires that sales resulting from door-to-door or telephonic marketing be subject to independent third-party verification after the sales agent leaves the customer's premise or the marketing call ends. RISA and NEMA requested rehearing or clarification on several aspects of that requirement. The draft order would uphold the February order, except that it would grant several of RISA's requests to provide flexibility in the way that the TPV requirement is implemented, such as permitting telemarketers to set up the TPV call with consumers, allowing TPV to be conducted by automated integrated voice response systems, and streamlining the TPV script. Just one other point I want to make, the TPV script changes came about through a collaborative process as well. This ends my presentation. Brandon and I are available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Just in terms of the balance here, and I appreciate where staff has ended up in this position, and support it, is that we're trying to do two things. One is we obviously do not want people who are already on a form of assistance to be paying more for energy than they would have if they just took power from the utility. And so to be in a situation where essentially you're getting a discount and then end up paying more, and that creates more problems around arrearages, et cetera, is we exactly need to address that problem. At the same time, we recognize that part of the issues that people have is the variability of price volatility, particularly people who are on fixed budget. And the fact is that as we proceed with REV, et cetera, we would like the market to provide more services, energy efficiency type services, which will have the mitigating effect on total energy bill. So, and the recognition, of course, that, which is, you can't is that if you're on a fixed price, you can't necessarily guarantee that it's going to be less than the utility because you're offering a fixed price and you're taking some risk. So I believe this strikes the appropriate balance in terms of making sure if it's a variable price, there is a guarantee for low income, but give us ability to take a look at if we offer value-added services, including a fixed price option that looks like it could provide benefits, as the collaborative may identify, that we do not deprive low-income customers of these market opportunities, and give them further opportunities to help mitigate or reduce their energy bills. So I think this is the right balance. I hope that the collaborative can work very quickly in coming forward with some ideas on how to proceed with this. I also really like the idea of using technology. Just seems to me, we all are consumers, and that a point of sale approach where you can validate at that time whether someone is entitled to a low income or is on a low income program or not seems to me the way to go, because it makes the transaction that much easier, and we really should be able to get the technology there. So I very much think that these parts of the order really address some of the harder issues that we dealt with in this docket. The second point about the working with the TPV, I think that works well. I know that, and I expect that this script will continue to evolve as we get more experience. But certainly the complaints we heard about people who felt that they got enrolled in programs that they weren't really agreeable to, this should help both the consumer as well as the industry to build market confidence. And that's something that I think is going to be very integral to our success in REV, is that people develop the confidence around working with retailers and start to see the value to them of getting different product offerings. So I think that this order goes a long way of addressing some of the major concerns that we had with the retail market, and I intend to support it. Are there any questions, comments? Commissioner Sayre.
I also, excuse me, I also support this item.
I guess we all have the same thing. Maybe we'll blame.
I don't know. It's a commission flu or something. But I'd like to get a little bit into the weeds in the what's going to be considered in the upcoming collaborative that we're directing. I have a couple of requests for that collaborative process that we're setting up in the order. I'd like the collaborative to consider what, if anything, should be asked in the third-party verification about possible eligibility for a low-income program. I'd also like the collaborative to explore the possibility of some EDI-type data flowing from ESCOs on whether a customer has been identified as low income and what kind of program they're being put on. And it would be really good to find out, if it can be done in a low-cost, economical way, overall, how many energy-related value-added services are being provided to all customers, because that'll help give us an idea of how well we're animating the markets in connection, as the chair said, with the REV proceeding.
Thank you.
I'm in.
Okay.
I also would request that we look carefully into the third-party verification to make sure that our policies are consistent, and I'm talking about our telecom policies and how they mesh with the policies that will move forward on this. As the chair said, there's a word that she used that really is important, that when we move forward and do something, it's creating that balance. And REV cannot be successful unless we're making sure that everyone is included and has an opportunity to move forward with everyone else. So I think that the collaborative is extremely important. I know that you've all done a lot of work on this and will continue to do a lot of work on it. And there again, we always have to leave ourselves the ability to be flexible as things change. But this is a really important step forward in making sure that there is opportunity for low-income people who are assisted. So thank you for your work. Appreciate it.
Commissioner Berman?
Thank you. First of all, I will be voting yes for this item. At the February session, I did vote for the item, and at that time I said that I implored folks, if they had concerns with the order, and if we were getting things wrong, to let us know. And then folks did. And the April order, which I voted in concurrence in part and dissent in part, was really a exploration of, we took a pause in what was happening and really delve down into listening to the stakeholders. The stakeholders were not just the retail access market sector, but also the consumer advocates. And today, what we're doing is taking into account a lot of what had been missing before, which was a clear record, and delving into the specific issues that were important to the parties. But rather than rushing forward, we are still staying a number of items and looking at those in the future, so that what we're really doing is trying to work and continue to work in a collaborative effort with folks, and to also, for me, it's very important that we keep in mind that we need to listen to all sides rather than dictating what we feel is important for decision making in the collaborative, so that the table is set by the folks who are really living and breathing it on both sides, rather than by us, and that we don't operate in a silo, but as these issues affect other proceedings, in particular the REV proceeding, that we make sure that we are communicating effectively to all interested parties, internally as well as externally. And I think that this is really kudos to Chair Ziebelman for recognizing the need to move fast but to slow down when appropriate. And I really am very happy with the way this is moving forward, and applaud the chair and the staff, and look forward to a really comprehensive collaborative that's inclusive and really tries not to dictate but to come up with real life solutions from the folks in the collaborative. So thank you.
Thank you, although I have to say the brains in this outfit is the woman in the blue scarf from the table. So, but well, thank you very much. I do want to note there are a number of issues that continue to be pending in this docket, and this docket actually preceded the REV docket. And so, what we're looking to do, and I think staff is doing a very good job, is bringing issues forward that need to be resolved. And certainly, we have a significant concern that the protections against consumer fraud and also protections necessary to protect low income were addressed early and in a way that could be executed easily, and I think make the market better, and as I said, build confidence in this market, which we need to have happen. So with that, I'm going to ask for a vote. And so all those in favor of the recommendation to grant and deny petitions for rehearing in part as described with respect to item 202, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Hearing no opposition, there being none, the recommendation is adopted. Thank you very much. And Brandon and Doug as well as Luann. So the third item today is item 302, which is Con Edison Storm Hardening and Resiliency Collaborative Phase 2 report. You know, people accuse us of jargon all the time. I don't see any jargon in that. So Tammy Mitchell is going to be presenting that today.
Good morning, Chair Ziebelman and Commissioners. Item 302 is a draft order that would adopt Con Edison's electric, gas, and steam systems storm hardening and resiliency plans for 2015 as presented in the company's Storm Hardening and Resiliency Collaborative Phase 2 report. The draft order does not recommend adoption of the company's 2016 plans at this time, but rather the 2016 plans for electric are expected to be addressed in the company's current electric rate case, and in the Phase 3 report to be filed on or before September 1st, 2015, which would also address the 2016 gas and steam plans. The draft order further directs Con Edison to include certain other information in its Phase 3 report, which will be discussed in more detail shortly. Finally, the draft order also directs the company to file within 60 days of the issuance of the order a timeline for completion of the climate change and vulnerability study. As way of background, we are all aware that Superstorm Sandy struck New York on October 29, 2012, bringing historic flooding and sustained high winds, causing the death of over 50 New Yorkers. Additionally, the storm caused billions of dollars of damage to property and energy systems, causing electric service outages to over 2 million New Yorkers. During the company's 2013 rate case proceedings, staff proposed a collaborative process that would begin in the rate case proceeding and continue beyond the rate case period to analyze the potential impacts of climate change on Con Edison systems and address storm hardening and resiliency efforts. In the 2014 Con Edison rate order, the Commission approved the company's proposed new design standard to protect its utility systems located in flood zones, which resulted from the collaborative process. This standard includes the use of the most recent Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA, floodplain maps, with the addition of at least 3 feet of protective construction in anticipation of future sea level rise and other risks. This standard is referred to as the FEMA +3 standard. Also, in the 2014 rate order, the Commission set revenue requirements, including forecasted storm hardening budget levels for each year of the respective rate plans, but stated that it expected the collaborative to continue on into Phase 2 and Phase 3 to conduct a more detailed review and approval of the proposed storm hardening projects for those years beyond rate year 1. On September 2, 2014, the company filed its Storm Hardening and Resiliency Collaborative Phase 2 report. The Phase 2 report describes in detail the storm hardening and resiliency work Con Edison is currently performing pursuant to the Commission's directive in the 2014 rate order. It also presents for the Commission's approval the company's proposed work for 2015 and 2016. In particular, the report describes storm hardening and resiliency work such as protecting coastal networks from storm surges and water infiltration, the use of submersible equipment, including transformers, addressing the needs of its overhead electric distribution system, substation protection including reinforced perimeter walls, installing gates and flood walls, and raising critical equipment, gas transmission and distribution system projects including main replacements, remote operated valves, liquefied natural gas plant hardening, and tunnel hardening of steam generating facilities and steam distribution systems, and hardening of the telecommunications systems used to monitor and control its generation and distribution systems. The company also indicated in its Phase 2 report that it will continuously monitor and, if warranted, consider a revision to the Flood Protection Design Standard, the FEMA +3 standard, to reflect updated climate change forecasts and sea level rise protections. With respect to storm hardening and resiliency expenditures, for 2014, it is estimated that Con Edison's storm hardening and resiliency investments were approximately $193 million in total. For 2015, the company's total estimated storm hardening expenditures are $386 million. The major increase in storm hardening expenditures from 2014 to 2015 is primarily related to electric overhead distribution and substation projects. Overhead distribution projects include installation of automatic isolation devices such as fuses, reclosers, and switches to reduce the number of customers impacted as a result of a single point of damage on the system. Other distribution projects involve using various measures such as redundant feeds, upgraded wire and pole sizes, and installation of breakaway hardware to improve the resiliency of targeted circuits that have experienced relatively more storm damage or distribution facilities that provide critical community needs. The 2015 storm hardening expenditures also include selective undergrounding projects, which would underground certain vulnerable portions of the overhead distribution system. With respect to electric substations, projected expenditure levels for 2015 are above 2014 levels, as well as above the originally forecast levels for 2015, as a result of the adoption of the FEMA +3 standard. which both increased the cost to harden previously identified substations and also resulted in the addition of more substations where flood protection measures would be installed. Over the term of the 2-year electric rate plan and 3-year gas and steam rate plans, the most recent forecasted expenditures in the aggregate approximate the spending amounts reflected in the 2014 rate order. Two parties, the City of New York and the Office of the Attorney General, provided comments on Con Edison's Phase 2 report. The City of New York raised 3 issues. 1, that natural gas should be the primary fuel for the company's backup generators, pumps, and similar equipment. 2, that all resiliency projects be completed by 2016. And 3, that the city's risk assessment and prioritization model be incorporated into the model used by Con Edison. The Attorney General's office asserted that Con Edison should immediately reevaluate its flood design standard and that the Commission should mandate that the company use a FEMA plus 5 foot standard. The draft order addresses these issues as follows. With respect to natural gas being the primary fuel for backup equipment, the draft order notes that natural gas would be a preferred fuel source where feasible, recommends that the parties address this issue in continued collaborative discussions, and directs the company to report in the Phase 3 report on the potential to make these conversions and any issues preventing such conversions. With respect to the timeline for completion of all resiliency projects, the draft order would accept the company's proposed schedule, which would have some project completion dates out through 2020, in particular work at the East 13th Street substation, but encourages the company to complete projects sooner to the extent possible. Further, the draft order directs that the company include in its Phase 3 report a detailed discussion of its experience in performing the upgrades to the East 13th Street substation and address whether all the work necessary to harden the East 13th Street substation can be completed prior to 2020. With respect to the city's comments on the risk assessment model, the draft order notes that the current model being used by Con Edison is generally reflective of the city's suggestions, but suggests that through collaborative discussions, the parties further analyze the 2 models, noting that such analysis should be coordinated with the benefit-cost analysis work expected to take place in the REV proceeding. Further, the draft order directs Con Edison to include in its Phase 3 report a detailed discussion regarding whether the company's risk assessment model should incorporate the economic impact methodology used by the City of New York, including the extent to which the 2 competing methodologies may overstate or understate actual societal impacts. Finally, with respect to the Attorney General's comments on the design standard, the draft order directs Con Edison to file, within 60 days, a timeline for completion of its climate change and vulnerability study, which should provide a longer-range basis for the ongoing review of the design standard. Until that data is available, it is expected that the company will design its storm hardening measures so that they can be augmented to reflect any change in the sea level projections and FEMA flood zone maps. This concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Thank you for actually such a thorough presentation. That was very good. First of all, I appreciate the continuing work and the continuing attention, not just of the company, but the parties and staff on this matter. Clearly, the undertaking we took after Sandy to take a look at hardening and how we would change the system and modify the system to address the extreme weather events, the ability to make it more resilient has really proven out to be of value, and the forward look is very much appreciated. I have 2 I think questions or points of clarification, and the first is not so much a question, it is a question. One of the concerns we have in terms of the integration of gas and electric is that when we need gas for heating fuels and it's being used for generation, particularly in winter, extreme weather, what are the ramifications of using gas as a backup fuel for the distribution system? Is there a concern, or how does the plan address that?
So the company still plans for its backup generators and other equipment, pumps and such, still plans to have enough liquefied fuel on site at each of its sites, and also have some available on standby for when there's a predicted event that they could bring in ahead of time. Using natural gas is another protective measure, so they would actually have dual fuel capability. Additionally, the amount of gas used for these backup generators and other equipment is expected to be low in quantity.
Thanks. And the second question is just, and you can turn to either of your cohorts to the right or the left on this one, but if you, because we're talking about moving in, we have a new rate case pending. You want to just take a minute so that it's clear as to how this approval today affects the rate case, or does it not affect, so there's no confusion on that. And Raj or Doris or Kim or any one of you. This could be jump ball.
The storm hardening was reflected in the prior rate case, so rate allowances were included in the prior rate case. For electric, it covered 2 years, so I presume the third year of the storm hardening plan would be considered within the context of this new rate filing.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions with respect to this item?
I don't have any questions. I just wanted to comment and thank folks for the diligence with doing this. I think it's important also to recognize the Environmental Defense Fund. They've been really historically involved in working in prior years as well. Under the Bloomberg administration, they worked with the city very nicely on the oil to gas conversions, and they continue to work now in coming up with ways to continue those efforts. So I think it's very good to see, and this collaborative really brought together many different folks, and really they rolled up their sleeves. So thank you.
Okay.
Just another comment, not a question. Sandy made it perfectly clear that storm hardening and resiliency measures have to be undertaken, and I don't think there's anyone who would disagree with that conclusion. The question is how much and how fast, and it's the Commission's job to balance that question, balance the costs, which are ultimately reflected in rates against the risks. I think the order in front of us does a very good job of doing that.
Thank you. Commissioner Akinpur, I don't want to neglect.
Don't forget me. I really concur with exactly what Commissioner Sayer said. It's always about a balance. And of course, when the public is out there and they don't have their electric, gas, or steam service because of a storm, naturally they're upset. They're also upset when they get an increase. And it is our position that we are here to balance, to make sure. We saw what Superstorm Sandy did, and there always has to be a better plan. And I think we've taken a huge step, and I thank Con Edison for the work that they have done too, along with all the other interested parties and our staff, in coming up with, again, a balance that always has to remain liquid, if you would say that, or flexible, because we never know what's coming down the road. But a plan to be prepared is where we need to be.
Thank you. So with that, I'm going to then move to a vote. And all those in favor of the recommendation, find my glasses, to approve the amended Storm Hardening and Resiliency Collaborative Phase 2 report as described, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? There being no opposition, the recommendation is adopted. We're now going to move to the consent agenda. Do any of the commissioners wish to recuse or abstain from voting in any of the consent agenda items? Okay. With that, then, all those in favor of the recommendations on the consent agenda, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? There being no opposition, the recommendations are adopted. Secretary Burgess, are there any other matters in front of us today?
There are no other matters today, and the next commission session will be on February 26th.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all. And we were adjourned.